Elon Musk's son lives in a $35 million mansion built just for him and his siblings. He's played in some of the most powerful rooms on Earth and has actually flown on Air Force One. And the craziest part, he's only 5. This is the life of the richest kid in the world, when your dad's worth almost $500 billion. So imagine being 5 years old and never having to worry about, well, anything really. And I'm not just talking about normal rich kid problems. I'm talking about a level of wealth that's so insane it literally breaks your brain trying to comprehend it. Meet X Ash, 12 Musk. Yeah, that's actually his name. But for the purpose of simplicity, we'll call him X. X is the kid who's basically living in a real-life version of what the rest of us can only dream about in our wildest fantasies. This isn't your typical "my parents are loaded" situation. We're talking about a 5-year-old whose dad, Elon Musk, has a net worth of $424.7 billion. To put that in perspective, if you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you over 1,100 years to spend all of Elon's money. That's absolutely bonkers, right? And his mum, that's Grimes, the experimental musician who's basically the coolest artist you've probably never heard of. She's the type of person who makes music that sounds like it came from the future. And honestly, given her kid's lifestyle, maybe it did. While most kids are begging their parents for the latest video game or maybe a new bike if they're lucky, X is just casually living a lifestyle that would make most world leaders jealous. And honestly, he probably doesn't even realize how insane his life is, because to him, this is just normal Tuesday stuff. Like, imagine never knowing what it's like to hear your parents argue about money, never understanding why someone would choose the store brand cereal over the name brand, never experiencing the anxiety of wondering if your family can afford, well, anything. Let's start with something most of us can relate to: getting around. You know how your family probably has that one car that's seen better days, maybe 2 if you're doing pretty well. Maybe you've got that dream of one day owning a Tesla or a BMW, and that feels like the ultimate luxury. Well, buckle up, because X's transportation situation is about to make your jaw drop. Elon owns multiple private jets, including a Gulfstream G650ER that's worth about $66.5 million and a Gulfstream G700 that clocks in at $75 million. Yeah, you read that right. We're talking about aircraft that cost more than most people's entire neighborhoods. To put this in perspective, the median home price in America is around $400,000. That means just one of these jets is worth about 165 average American homes. That's not transportation. That's a flying city's worth of real estate. And it's not like these are just sitting around collecting dust either, like some rich person's trophy collection. Musk spent over 48 days in the air during 2023 alone. That means little X is racking up more flight miles before he can even tie his shoes than most of us will accumulate in our entire lives. While you're dealing with cramped airline seats, overpriced airport food, and those lovely TSA security lines that make you question your life choices, this kid is probably playing with toys worth more than your car, while cruising at 40,000 feet in a cabin that's bigger than most people's apartments. Think about how that messes with your perception of normal though. Like, when flying in a private jet becomes your regular mode of transportation, what do you even think about commercial flights? Do you even know they exist? Have you ever experienced the joy of being stuck on a runway for 3 hours while some guy in front of you argues with the flight attendant about his oversized carry-on? It's like being raised by aliens and then trying to understand why humans walk when they could just teleport everywhere. And speaking of places to live, most of us are pretty happy if we've got enough space for everyone and maybe a decent backyard where you can throw a barbecue without your neighbors hearing every conversation. But for X, he's got access to properties from his dad's massive real estate portfolio, including a $35 million family compound in Austin, Texas, that was literally designed just to house all of Musk's kids and their mums. And before that Austin compound, he was hanging out in Musk's former Bel Air mansions, including this absolutely ridiculous 2,248 square foot place with its own gym, spa, tennis court and movie theater, worth about $17 million. For context, the average American home is around 2,000 square feet. This kid has been living in spaces that are literally 10 times bigger than what most families consider spacious. And it's not just big. We're talking about houses with amenities that most of us only see when we're staying at fancy hotels. For special occasions, like imagine having your own movie theater. Not just a big TV in the living room, an actual theater with stadium seating and a popcorn machine. Most of us are excited when we upgrade to a 55-inch TV, and this kid's got IMAX level entertainment as his baseline normal. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just old money sitting around in boring mansions filled with dusty antiques and oil paintings of dead relatives. This is tech billionaire money, which means everything in X's world is probably cutting edge and futuristic. The smart home technology alone probably costs more than most people's entire houses. We're talking about homes where the lights, temperature, security, entertainment, and probably the coffee maker are all controlled by AI systems that most of us won't see for at least another decade. Like when he visited Twitter's offices, now X Corporate, in 2022, they literally just scattered toys around the conference room so he could play while his dad was running billion-dollar business meetings. Imagine this, a room full of executives, engineers, and decision-makers mapping out the future of social media, shaping the daily lives of millions, while in the corner, a 5-year-old is quietly playing with toys, like it's casual bring-your-kid-to-work day at one of the world's most powerful tech company. And we're not talking about normal toys here. Given his dad's taste for unique and expensive stuff, these could be custom-made high-tech playthings that cost more than most people's cars. Speaking of unique stuff, get this. Elon owns the actual Lotus Esprit submarine car from the 1977 James Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. He bought it at auction for $920,000, and he's actually talked about trying to make it work as a real submarine. So while most kids are watching Bond movies and thinking, wow, that's cool, X is literally living in the same house as an actual Bond car. That's nearly $1 million for what's essentially the ultimate movie collectible. Most of us get excited about finding a vintage toy at a garage sale for $20. This kid's probably walked past $1 million movie prop more times than he can count, and to him, it's just another thing sitting in Dad's garage. That's the kind of stuff that completely warps your understanding of what's possible in the world. Most of us can only dream about the cool cars we see in movies. This kid's reality includes owning actual pieces of movie history. It's like living in a museum where everything is worth more than most people's life savings. But instead of being behind glass with "do not touch" signs, it's just part of your everyday environment. And then there's the stuff lying around his everyday life. Musk's got things like a Tesla diamond and ruby ring worth over $37,000 and a Richard Mille watch that goes for $200,000. Sure, they're not technically X's, but imagine growing up in a house where a $200K watch is just there. That's 4 years of college tuition casually hanging out on someone's wrist. Most of us spend months saving for a decent watch that costs a few $100. This kid, he's surrounded by timepieces worth more than some people's houses. And knowing Musk, X probably gets wild custom gifts too, like those one-of-a-kind Air Jordan Tesla sneakers his dad has. For most kids, expensive gifts are a once-a-year birthday or Christmas thing, and expensive usually means a new gaming console or bike. For X, expensive lives on a whole different planet, where custom-made one-off items are just another random Tuesday. But honestly, the craziest part isn't even the stuff he has access to. It's the experiences that money literally can't buy for normal people. We're talking about access to places and situations that even other billionaires' kids don't get to experience. And that's where X's story gets really wild, because it turns out having the richest dad in the world opens doors that most of us didn't even know existed. The thing is, all this material wealth is just the foundation. It's like the basic level of his reality, the stuff that just happens to be lying around his house like our old magazines and random phone chargers. The really mind-blowing part is where this 5-year-old gets to go and who he gets to hang out with. And trust me, when I tell you about the places this kid has been treated like it's just another Tuesday, you're going to realize that being the world's richest child is about way more than just having expensive toys. Casually hanging out in the most powerful places on Earth. X visited the Oval Office in February 2025, where he was photographed playing around the Resolute desk and literally interrupting a press conference. Like, pause for a second and think about that. The Oval Office, the room where the most powerful person on the planet makes decisions that affect literally billions of people. The place where nuclear codes are discussed, where declarations of war are considered, where the future of humanity is often decided. And this 5-year-old is just hanging out there, playing, actually interrupting official presidential business. I mean, presidents' kids and grandkids have been in the Oval Office before, sure, that makes sense. Family visits to dad's workplace and all that. But a private citizen's child just casually strolling around, touching historic furniture and interrupting press conferences. That's completely unprecedented in American history. Most adults would be terrified to even breathe wrong in that room, worried about accidentally bumping into something worth millions of dollars or saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. And X is treating it like his personal playground, probably wondering why everyone's being so serious all the time. Think about the historical weight of that space, though. The Resolute desk that he was playing around, that thing has been used by presidents since 1880. It's made from the wood of a British ship, And every major decision that's shaped modern America has probably been made while someone was sitting at that desk. Wars have been declared from behind that desk. Peace treaties have been signed on its surface, and X is just casually treating it like any other piece of furniture. And here's the thing. This wasn't some one-time thing. X has been spotted at Capitol Hill and other political venues, just casually wandering around the corridors of American power like he's at the grocery store with Mum. His frequent appearances at high-profile political events suggest this isn't unusual for him. It's just Tuesday. Think about what that does to a kid's worldview, though. Most children learn about government from social studies classes and maybe see politicians on TV during election season. They might know the president's name and understand that there are people called senators and representatives, but it's all very abstract and distant. X is literally absorbing civics lessons by wandering around the actual places where American democracy happens, meeting the actual people who make the decisions that affect hundreds of millions of lives. And with his dad's involvement in things like the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, these political connections aren't going anywhere anytime soon. This isn't a temporary novelty. X is growing up embedded in the political power structure of the most powerful country on Earth. While other kids might dream about maybe meeting the president someday, X is probably wondering why everyone makes such a big deal about it. But the political access is just one part of his social world, and honestly, it might not even be the most impressive part. He also showed up at the MMA Global Possible Conference in Miami in 2023, where he was literally playing on stage while the conference was happening around him. Picture this scene. You've got major business leaders, innovators, and media personalities from around the world, all attending this serious international conference. These are people who run companies worth billions of dollars, who make decisions that affect entire industries, who shape the global economy. And right in the middle of important presentations and high-level networking, there's a 5-year-old just casually playing on stage like the whole thing was set up for his entertainment. And it's not just American events either. Growing up as the son of one of the world's most influential people means X is likely meeting global business leaders, philanthropists, and cultural influencers on the regular. His father's relationships with figures like Narendra Modi and Donald Trump mean X is probably getting exposed to international politics and global power dynamics in ways that most adults never experience, let alone 5-year-olds. Now, X isn't just benefiting from his dad's tech world connections. His mum Grimes brings a completely different set of social circles to the mix, and the combination creates something really unique. As a musician and artist known for experimental and futuristic work, she's introducing X to avant-garde artistic communities that most people never even know exist. Grimes has mentioned that X has an interest in radical art, which suggests he's not just exposed to mainstream culture, but to cutting-edge creative movements that push boundaries and challenge conventional thinking. This combination of high-tech innovation from his dad's world and experimental artistry from his mum's scene creates a social environment that's literally unique on the planet. Most kids get exposed to either traditional culture or maybe some STEM programs if they're lucky. X is getting the intersection of cutting-edge technology and avant-garde art, which creates possibilities for creative and intellectual development that exist nowhere else. And then there's the family dynamic, which is honestly pretty wild in its own right. X has 13 siblings and half-siblings, and Musk has actually bought properties specifically to keep all his kids close together. So X isn't just growing up with incredible individual privilege, he's part of what might be the most privileged sibling group in human history. Think about what that means, though. These family connections could lead to collaborative ventures or shared social circles that could fundamentally change how wealth and influence operate in the next generation. Imagine a group of siblings all raised with unlimited resources, global connections, and access to cutting-edge technology. The potential for them to work together on massive projects or influence global events is honestly a little scary when you think about it. But it's not all smooth sailing in the social access department. Grimes has expressed some serious concerns about X's public exposure, wanting to protect him from too much media attention. There's clearly some tension between the incredible opportunities that Elon's position provides and Grimes's desire to give X a more private, normal childhood. And honestly, you can understand both sides of this dilemma. On one hand, the access and connections X is building could set him up for incredible opportunities to make positive changes in the world. He's meeting the people who actually have the power to solve global problems, learning about international relations from the people who practice it, and developing an understanding of how power and influence work that most people never acquire. On the other hand, growing up completely disconnected from normal human experiences might make it impossible for him to relate to or understand the challenges facing most people. How do you develop empathy for people struggling with student loans when you've never experienced financial stress? How do you understand the difficulties of navigating bureaucracy when doors open automatically for you wherever you go? His unconventional upbringing and unique name suggest he's being raised in a pretty non-traditional environment, which could lead to connections with unconventional or countercultural groups, especially in tech and art communities. But it also raises questions about whether someone raised with this level of privilege and access can develop the perspective needed to tackle real-world problems that affect normal people. But we'll put a pin in that for now. Lately, X has also gotten pretty obsessed with rockets. So much so that he actually gets cranky if someone pulls him out of one of his dad's meetings. When your playground includes rocket ships and AI, here's X being taken out of a meeting. Lately, he's developed a huge fascination with rockets, and according to Grimes, he knows more about rockets than me. She says he had a pretty intense reaction when he saw a SpaceX Starship blow up during a test. Now, let's put this in perspective. Most 5-year-olds who are into rockets might have some toy rockets, maybe watch some YouTube videos about space, or dream about becoming astronauts someday. Their rocket knowledge might extend to knowing that rockets go up and that space is far away. X's rocket obsession involves watching actual billion-dollar prototype vehicles blow up in real time during live testing procedures that determine the future of human space exploration. As the son of SpaceX's CEO, he's got access to SpaceX facilities, prototypes, and events that represent the absolute cutting edge of aerospace engineering. While other kids might visit science museums to look at old rockets behind glass, reading plaques about what space exploration used to look like, X can probably walk through active development facilities where the actual vehicles that are going to take humans to Mars are being built right now, today, by people he knows personally. Grimes mentioned that X can identify obscure rocket design and knows about technical stuff like grid fins, entry burns, robots. But the rocket stuff is just one part of the technological wonderland this kid is growing up in. Given that his dad is also the CEO of Tesla, Neuralink, and XAI, X is probably surrounded by people working on artificial intelligence, brain-computer interfaces, and sustainable energy technologies. His early exposure to SpaceX facilities and events suggests he's developing a real affinity for these fields, but it's way more than just liking rockets and robots. This is normalized immersion in the most advanced technological development happening anywhere on Earth. While other kids dream about what they want to be when they grow up, choosing from careers that currently exist, X is watching adults who are actively reshaping reality through technological innovation, creating entirely new categories of jobs and possibilities. And here's where it gets even more interesting. This technological immersion is mixing with his artistic background in really fascinating ways. Like we mentioned earlier, Grimes has noted X's interest in radical art and his ability to engage with complex concepts, which suggests a kid who doesn't see any boundaries between high-tech innovation and creative expression. Most people think of art and technology as separate fields, but X is growing up where they're completely integrated. As the child of both a tech mogul and an experimental musician, X probably has access to exclusive cultural experiences, high-tech educational tools, and interactions with influential figures in both art and technology. Even the most advanced educational programs are designed around teaching existing knowledge and established concepts. X is getting an education that combines the most advanced technological concepts currently being developed by humans with experimental artistic thinking that challenges conventional boundaries and pushes creative expression into completely new territories. This isn't just about having access to better resources. This is about growing up in an environment where the impossible becomes routine, where breakthrough innovations are everyday occurrences, and where the line between imagination and reality is constantly being redrawn. That's a combination that's never existed before in human history. Looking at his potential future connections, he's likely going to be surrounded by engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, and innovators working on AI, space exploration, and sustainable energy. Musk's approach to fostering a well-rounded upbringing, combined with X's obvious interest in rockets and engineering, suggests he might end up in prestigious educational institutions or intellectual communities focused on science, technology, and philosophy. But honestly, given his current level of technological exposure, traditional educational institutions might actually seem kind of limiting rather than challenging. Think about it. What do you teach a kid who already understands aerospace engineering concepts that most college students struggle with? How do you challenge someone who's been exposed to the cutting edge of AI development since before he could walk? Traditional education is designed to gradually introduce complex concepts as students develop the cognitive ability to handle them. But X has been immersed in complexity that most adults never encounter since birth. X is growing up surrounded by complexity that most adults never encounter, absorbing advanced technological, Concepts not through formal education, but through daily exposure to their practical application. His ability to engage with complex concepts like rocket engineering at such a young age suggests either exceptional intellectual development or, more likely, the incredible power of immersive learning environments that most children never get to experience. When rocket science is just part of your daily environment, it stops being rocket science and becomes normal conversation. When you grow up surrounded by people who can literally reshape reality through technology and unlimited resources, how do you develop understanding of limitations? How do you learn to work within constraints when constraints have never applied to your life? How do you understand the practical challenges facing most people when your normal includes private jets and rocket factories? As he's only 5 years old, his future interests and personality will obviously shape what he does with all these connections and opportunities. His parents' focus on privacy might limit some public-facing relationships, but their influence will definitely open doors to elite networks that could shape technological development for decades. While it's impossible to predict exactly what will happen, X is definitely going to form connections in tech, entertainment, politics, and intellectual circles due to his parents' influence and his early exposure to these environments. His specific path will depend on his personal interests and how much his parents' networks continue to shape his opportunities. But here's what's really fascinating about X's technological upbringing. It's not just about access to cool gadgets or experimental projects. It's about growing up with a fundamentally different understanding of what humans are capable of achieving. Most of us learn about human limitations early and often. We learn that certain things are impossible, that some problems can't be solved, that there are just natural boundaries to what technology can accomplish. X is growing up in an environment where those boundaries are constantly being challenged and often broken. When your daily reality includes people who are actively working to make humans a multiplanetary species, to merge human consciousness with artificial intelligence, and to solve climate change through revolutionary technology, your understanding of what's possible becomes completely different from everyone else on Earth. This isn't just about being optimistic or having big dreams. This is about having lived experience with breakthrough innovation happening around you constantly. Most kids learn that adults often can't deliver on their promises, that big projects fail, that revolutionary ideas usually don't work out. X is learning that impossible problems can be solved if you throw enough smart people, advanced technology, and unlimited resources at them. The long-term implications of this mindset are staggering. If X maintains this perspective as he grows up, he might approach global challenges with a level of ambition and confidence that seems completely unrealistic to everyone else. While other people might look at problems like poverty, disease, or environmental destruction and think, these are complex issues that require gradual, incremental progress. X might think, these are engineering problems that can be solved with sufficient technological innovation and resources. That could be either humanity's greatest advantage or a recipe for spectacular failure, depending on how it plays out. On one hand, maybe we need people who don't accept traditional limitations, who think that seemingly impossible problems can be solved through technological innovation. On the other hand, real-world problems often involve human behavior, cultural issues, and complex social dynamics that can't be solved purely through technology and resources. Whether X will channel his extraordinary advantages into driving humanity forward, or whether that level of privilege will make it harder for him to truly understand everyday human needs is still uncertain. One thing's clear though, we're watching a kid grow up with privileges most people will never come close to experiencing. And that's a wrap. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out more amazing content on our channel. Take care and we'll see you in the next one.